Good afternoon. My name is Firas, and today we are going to finish Autodesk 3D Studio Max elementary course. Specifically, we are in Unit 2 and Lecture 1. In this lecture, we're going to start talking about modeling as a basics, specifically by the use of primitive modeling and the effect of transformers on accomplishing or gaining a good result out of that. In this lecture, I'm going to focus on modeling as a primitives technique, whether it's standard and extended. You're going to create a simple box and a simple cylinder. Why and when we use primitives or parametric modeling. And homework 1, transformers type in assignment number 1, snapping and grid, the concept of grouping, mirror, AutoGrid, pivot point, and I'm going to have some assignment or exercise. I'm not going to give all homeworks and assignments. I'm not going to model them actually, not by necessity all of them, but we're going to see within the work how it's going to be accomplished. Anyway, that's what I want to show you at the end, or at least we should reach. It's a very simple. We should reach at the end of this lecture, and it's a very simple sketch or architectural sketch. Again, here I'm pushing the students toward trying to use 3D Studio Max accurately as a sketching tools. Earlier I showed you that's how you can sketch randomly. Now we can go like a little bit of more detailed sketch, or more architectural sketch out of that. Basically, we need to understand primitives, or some actually call it parametric modeling. It's not really the idea of parametric that you can use, or actually you can find in lots of more complicated applications like Revit, Dynamo, or Grasshopper for Rhinoceros, but it's very basic parametric modeling. Even the names actually has been divided between the both concepts. Some call them primitives because they are actually the basics modeling techniques, or very elementary first stage that we all use it when we design in Max. Some books you can find call them parametric, and because they actually have their own parameter and they stick with the modify or stick with the object, unless you destroy that, by the way, by changing the modeling method. Otherwise, if you keep it as it's been created before, it will have its own parameter, and the form will be generated as based on a parameter. That some of the books call it parametric modeling. Anyway, this, which is the first type of modeling that I wanted to talk about. So if I want to go to Max, they are all here in the Create tab, and while we're here, that's the panel here. And in the panel we can find tabs, which is this Create tab, that's the Modification tab, and that's the Hierarchy, and so on. So everything you're going to create, or you want to create from scratch, you're going to go to this one, and all those types of it based on the category created here. So that's a Create Geometry, which is 3D objects. That's for create 2D shapes, lights and camera helpers, and so on. So you're going to find in Create, in Geometry, that's the standard primitives, and there's two types of primitives, standard primitives and extended. I'm going to talk about the standard, which is the basic. You're going to find that default open for you when you start up Max for the first time. And the easiest one is box, so I'm going to click on that. And careful, because you need to understand a very basic idea about Max is when you play with the parametric or primitives here, don't just click and move your hand and then you try to gain things out of changing that. It's actually being cancelled. So be careful when you create. Keep one click and then continuously move your hand to get the other corner, and then up again and again. This is the box that you just created, and if you change that again or that, you can change its width and height and so on. But what I just said again, careful is when you click outside like that, just a normal click, you might be just did by a mistake, and then you come to change this, you're gonna find that not affecting this. So that's the common mistake, is you go as just a person try to learn Max, and you jump in and you click and then nothing happened, and then you expect that gonna affect the previously created object, or gonna affect something. Some people click and they expect that they can get things by changing those number. It's not like that. So whenever you click by mistake, If you didn't create the object, that's an issue, but you just need to create and click and keep dragging to move your hand. But if you created the object, then nothing will be shown here. And that's the basic difference between AutoCAD and Max, because people think that this is a property panel. It's not a property panel, it's a create panel. That's the modify, so it's very similar to the property. So I'm gonna show you the things or the parameters related to that box you just selected, and again you can change that, and you can know that this guy has been selected from the white edges you have here. When you select that, to select, when you click outside that, a deselect. Anyway, so that's very basic things. That's again box. So again, if you want to create box, create, and then geometry, and then that's the standard primitive. Click box, click continuously, and then move your hand down, and then remove your hand from the click, and then push your hand up to create the height. And then you can come here and make it, I don't know, like we can make it 1. That's too big, and so it's 0.5. Let's go 0.5. It's again too big, so 0.1 by 0.1, and then the height is 0.1 again. And previously I've been set the units for me as in AutoCAD, so as in AutoCAD and Max, and that's why you can find that as meters. So if you haven't done any AutoCAD to Max transformation, or haven't worked on Max, actually it's a good idea to go customs and then customize, sorry, and then unit setup, metric meters, and then system unit setup, and make this also meters again. So meter here and meter here, and then hit OK, and then start working. Anyway, back to the creation. What else? We can create a sphere. So that's my sphere. I'll just delete this box. So that's my sphere again, and you can click and move your hand. Just first click for the center, and the second click for the radius. And as you can see that the structure here is rectangular base. If you deselect, you're never going to see anything. So just hit the F4. It's going to change it to going to show the edges, even if you are not selecting. That might help you specifically to understand the difference between sphere and geosphere, which is similarly as a sphere. It's the same techniques, but one difference is actually it's made of triangles. The parameters here actually also differs. For example, if I select this guy and the sphere, I can just change the segments from here, the radius from here, basically similar, but you can control how much cut you got in a very specific matter. You can get like exactly 0.8 been cut, so it's almost like a very nice dome here. Anyway, 0.6, 0.5 to make it half. While this guy, if you go to the modify to change it, you're gonna find just one option, one checkbox actually, to make it hemisphere, which is half, exactly half. No more precise hemisphereing. You can go for slice, and with a slice you can just you know, get a slice out of this poor thing. And it's really yep, you can make it like you can make Pac-Man here, you know, like this. I love it. Anyway, so you can take a slice out of the geometry, or you can cut it based on a hemisphere base, so whatever you want actually. Getting back to this, I don't want to waste time on that. It's really self-explanatory. So that cylinder, click for the radius, location, click for the amount of radius, and then go height. So center, radius, height. Teapot, sorry, tube. It's two circle inside each other. So the first one is to select the center, then the biggest radius, then the smallest radius, and then to the height. So torus, again, pyramid, self-explanatory. It's just making pyramids. Teapot, that's the crazy guy here. You're gonna love it. It's really nice. Cone. Talk about ice cream. That's a cone. All right. So you can make it bigger, small. It's basically two circles on the base, one on the top, and you can control. That's the total difference between it and the cylinder. That the both circles are the same. While here you can control is a small, none, or even bigger. That's the cone. Anyway, and finally the plane. It's good to make it. I know it's 2D shape, but I think they made it with a 3D. So when you create these guys, and you want some platform to create shadows, you know, that's here I think you can control whatever shade. Well, we should have seen shade. Oh, by the way, we have shades here. Yep, here you can see now we have a base instead of this grid. You can go ahead and hit G to turn off the grid because they are technically useless for us as an architect. You can see this plane you created is actually collecting the shadow from this. You might need to go here to make this realistic to see the shadow. Anyhow, that's basically, I don't want to waste more time on explaining inside each one of them. There are plenty of options, different. So I'm gonna go create, and then here extended, and chamfer box and chamfer cylinder are very similar to the normal box. It's just an extra click that can allow you to create this curvy edges, and you can increase the width, the height, and everything here, as you see. And that's the fillet segments, that's the amount of fillet actually. And when you go down, that's the fillets, that's the segment, sorry, in each level or in each dimension. And see, it's chamfered actually. We want to make this curve to make it fillet, so the trace of this fillet sides or fillet segments, you're going to get this dicey shape or dicey object. Same thing with chamfer cylinder. I'm not going to explain it. Hydra is very nice. I bet you might need to check that. It's really good, really good geometry. It's look like two pyramids attached to each other by the bottom, and then if you go different options here, and those have different possibility of their existence, so each one of them you can change that. It's really lovely, by the way. I'll leave that for you to explore. See, it's powerful tool here, and again how much the axis is scaling based on each one of them. So almost all shapes you need to make a lightning fixture, chandelier, or any type of crazy geometry you need to table lamp. Lots of possibilities you can get out of those. It's almost infinity here with the same object. It's really powerful. So that's Hydra. That's, if I was you, I'll spend most of time trying to understand those three. Torus knot. I need someone to tell me what this is. It's just a knot made out of a tube. I think they use it to make an internal animation of a subject running in crazy shapes here, but for architect, I don't think it's gonna be useful for you. Oil tank, as the name goes, first click for the radius, second click, sorry, first location for the center, second click, I'm still clicking and holding, by the way, to the radius, then you go up, and then the third click to specify the amount of curvature in this tower or in this oil tank. Capsule is very similar to the oil tank, with one exception. It's this half circle, half cylinder doesn't allow you to change the curvature of that. Spindle, again self-explained, the name is really obvious, so spindle. Anyway, Alex extrude could be useful for architect, I don't know, I don't think so, but anyway, in case. C. So yeah, Gangon, it could be useful. You can make like a fifth-sided or pentagon, and the last click is for how much chamfer you can get, so make it four-sided, 5, 6, whatever you want. Let's keep it like that, and that the radius, the fillet amount. Anyway, whose again the name is stand for itself. Prism actually, sorry, I don't understand. Anyway, it's just again just a prism. And ring wave, what this do here with the 3D object, I have no idea. I think they add this just to make the effect of explosion. So if you hit animate here, it's already have some stored animation for the face, for the inside. I think they just created to give an illusion of something exploded in the space. Anyway, so probably we can control that by making it very small, and then we move that, and then we change the radius up as much, and then we turn off auto key, and then we go back, and then we hit. It gives the illusion of something exploded in space, I think. So the planet, and then, you know, I don't know. Probably they add that for this type of explosion effect with the basics elements. So probably put a sphere or a planet here in the center, and then it's explodes. I don't think it's really for architects, for us to have a look at this. But anyway, just for you to have a basic understanding of those tools. They are powerful actually, and you can get lots of benefit out of them. And we call that again the primitives, or parametric modeling. And parametric again, because each one of them, when you click them and you go to the modify, you find it based on a pre-existing or predefined parameters, which are those. And we call them primitives because we actually start up the modeling for anything. Sorry, we call them primitives because they are very primary or basic objects that we can start most of our modeling from them. Again, the modeling here is very easy, and again, you need probably a couple of hours playing with those things, try to understand them carefully. And again, for example, here we have segments, and we spent some time last lecture talking about that. To create sub-object division, and from that we can create another objects. Anyway, so that's it for that. Get back to the slide. So again, why we call them primitives and parametric, we already spoke about that, and how to create box and the possibilities the box can be existed. Same thing with the cylinder and the slice option, as you can see, could be interesting for us. And had a question popping, why and when we use primitive or parametric modeling, and it can be used for a starting point, of course, for much more complicated modeling. Most of them can, as we saw, I think in the last lecture, it can be started from a box and then goes all the way to making much more complicated geometries out of that. So in order to create a composition based on those primitives, we need to understand the transformers, and there are basic functions that can help us to change the location, which move, or change the orientation of an object, which is rotate, or change the scale of an object as relative to the original point, which we call it scale. So the MRS function, which is stands for move, rotate, and scale, can be controlled by hotkeys, which they are W and E and R. So W for move, and R and E for the rotate, and R for the scale. And all of those are actually not controlling the whole object, rather than they control or attach to the gizmo of that object. So what is that? So if I created a sphere here, you see that there is a gizmo here, or that triage here, that have the X, Y, and Z or Z axis. This is the gizmo. So the move, actually, we're gonna, as a transformer, we're gonna control that from here. So it's the gizmo is as if we have it as a base point in AutoGrid. And again, if you want to move something, it's really a good idea to hold the head of the y-axis, for example, which will restrain the movement for the y. So if I move my hand up, you see it's not going to affect unless I have my hand to the left and right. And same thing for the x-axis, and same thing for the z. So as you can see here, if you want to move for an x and y as a plane, so you click on those intersected lines, and you can see it's now moving between them. And same thing for that axis. Anyway, so it's a good idea to create things based on the location on the XYZ. So if I right click here, I'm going to open the transform type in, and I just write here 0 and then 0 and then 0, and I'm going to relocate the object to the original point, as you can see. So that's the y-axis, the origin, and that's the x origin, and that's the intersection, which is the 0, 0, 0. Now the place of the object relocated based on that. Probably I hit G to return to activate the grid here. It's not been changed. I think it's the object is too big. So if I hit G now, you see it's a really big object. So again, that's my sphere. I'm going to create it here, and you see now G will turn on and off the grid. And right click on this to get this one, and from here you can just hit 0 and then 0 0 to get it exactly to the origin area. And see, the gizmo in this case is actually in the centroid of this geometry. It's in the center, and the centroid, half of the circle is under the grid and the other half of the circle is above the grid. And anyway, if you don't really understand how to move the viewport, it's again that's pushing the scroll up and down for zooming, and if you keep pressing on the scroll to make the panning, and just hit Alt and then the middle button to make the arc rotate, or this one, what we call it, orbit selected, or whatever here. Again, this guy to make this view big and small. I prefer to use Alt and W. Each active window is the one who actually gonna respond for you, so I can hit here and then hit Alt and W to make it big. Anyway, we spoke about that by the viewport. Anyway, now look at the difference. If I have a box here and then again clicking, pressing, and then I'm still pressing, and then I remove my hand to decide the X and the Y, or the Z and X, Y for that the box. If I remove my hand, I will specify the height, and you can see again that's my box here. It have too much segment. Still remember the segments that I added for my previous box. It's have the ability to store it. And again, look at the gizmo or the transformer. It's actually a transformer triage here. It's stuck to the center of the object, but to the bottom of that. It isn't in the centroid, so it's not in the middle. If you don't believe me, just have a quick look at this. Then left. See the circle? It's located in this exact center and centroid. Well, this, yes, it is in the center, but it's not exactly here in the middle. It's rather touching the ground, and I think it's more useful for us, especially architect. We want to make a cube, and we all want it to sit on the ground. It will be really hideous idea if half of the box will be under the ground, and then we have to move it again. So just to save us from having extra step, actually. So that's the basic thing about the move. And again, if you hit rotate, again those three circles, so that will move it around the Z, that will move it around the X, and so on. And if it's a mess, as I did here, a couple of movement, again, if that's not available, right click here, and you can just make that 0, 0, and then 0 to cancel the rotation and return it to the previous state. And by the way, you have the same thing here, the same tools here. I'm just an old school guy, so you can just rotate around the Z here, or just write I want it 45 degrees, for example. If you don't want that, just hit space. And again, as you see, it's is actually the same thing as here anyway. Scale. And I highly recommend not to use the scale inside 3D Studio Max for lots of reasons, and I'll show you later on why. But basically, so look, if you stand in exactly in the middle, you're gonna guarantee X, Y, Z to collapse or extend more, so make it bigger on all axes, or make it smaller, similarly to the same value on all axes. So again, you can see that all of them has been reduced by 64 point something for the whole thing. If you want to just hit or just stand on the Z axis, you're going to make this taller. Don't do that. Again, don't do that. That's very wrong anyway, and I'll show you later on why. If you change the Y itself, and then that's the X, and so on. Anyway, if you see when you select this, it tells you it's been scaled differently based on 100% offset, which is the 100% as if it's original from its original value. So again, to reset that, just select everything and hit 100, 100, and then 100. So that its original shape, so original size. So why it's not a good idea to use scale, and I'm gonna show you that. Let's get rid of the segments. We don't need them. So see, this is a 10 by 10 by 10. It's a full cube. So if I made a copy of that, if I want to make a copy of that, I'll just take that box, keep pressing on shift, that move, and then I'll hit the y-axis to make a copy for that direction. And I don't care about any numbers. I just hit OK and a copy. Now I made a cloning type copy, which is a clone that doesn't have any relationship between this and that, so between the origin and the new one. So anyway, this guy is 10 by 10, and guess what? This is also 10 by 10 because it's a copy. Anywho, so look, use the scale now. I want to make this higher or taller than this one. That's the wrong way to do it. You jump in here and change that, and now it's higher, I know, but if you click and then you look at the property, it's still 10 by 10 by 10, and that's 10 by 10 by 10. So that's really a confusing aspect. So later on, when you want to build or to specify this building, you're gonna click on that and tell the people it's 10 by 10 by 10, especially if you forgot or you didn't look at those. And this guy are the same, so it makes no sense. It's make no sense at all. This is a 10 by 10 and this is a 10 by 10. It's impossible. And look, that's happened because scaling is just an illusion that compare this or change this as a relative, which is, as you can see here, to its original shapes. So as an architect, I highly don't advise you to use a scale at all, and just keep it, just use the modify here to change that, you know. At least you're changing a real number, and the real value of the distance, is actually between the points you want. Anyway, that's a basic introduction about the transformer. And here, that slide I can show you actually that this is the move as a gizmo for it or a transformer for it, and that's the rotation, and that's the scale. And again, you can have them here again at the lower part of the screen, and they're also controlling the gizmo directly. And you can note that even I picked this or I picked any one of those, there is two types. There is an absolute system and there is an offset system. What are these? Let's have a look. Let's go back to the circle or the sphere, sorry. See that the absolute movement is actually changing the direct location, the XYZ location of the object based or to the XYZ meeting point or the coordination, the word coordination point. So if I push this like 10, like this, another 10, sorry, let's make it 20. So it's basically moving in the x-axis, and it's now, if this is a 10 and that's 10, it's actually moved 20. Let's go to the top view and see here, it's moved actually 20 in the x, nothing in the z, nothing in the y. So this is an exact location of the centroid, or actually the gizmo of the transformation away from the 0, 0. It's absolute coordination. If you make it 20 by 20, it's gonna be here, 20 in x, 20 in y, and so on. While these guys are offset systems, so which is the most common use, by the way. Architect, rarely we depend on the absolute system. We really create a column here, for example, or a lighting fixture here. We want to copy it that way. So I can just go hit Control V for that object, for example. If you select an object and then you hit Control and V on the keyboard, it's going to make a copy of it. So what type of copy? Let's keep it copy, which is, again, as we said, the origin and the new one have no relationship to each other. I will explain that later on, don't worry. So now I hit copy, creating an exact copy located here in the same place. It looks like nothing happened, but there is, by the way. It's a copy here, exact location, exactly the same size. Let's test the offset. I'm gonna hit here and say another 20. When I hit enter, immediately it is getting back to 0, see? And the circle is actually moved another 20. The copy is actually moved another 20. Let's hit another 10, sorry, and hit enter. See? Now it's 50. This location is 50. So this is still measure its exact location for the gizmo from the X and Y, while this returned to 0. So us architect, we really love doing that. So just like just give it another 20 and that's it. Forget about it. I don't care where is its actual location. Use the absolute system if you are designing a column or designing a chain. You want everything just itself, not an entire scene. You want everything to be located based on the 0, 0. It's really powerful tool for designing things by themselves as a column or a chair. Well, if you have an entire scene, especially when you're gonna very soon import from AutoCAD, this is gonna be lost for all, the original, and you're gonna depend on moving things, copying things to the location, which by hit Control V as I did here, and then hit OK, and then you push that in the Y or any axis you like. And by the way, this is the same thing. So if I hit that, this system will turn into an absolute system, and if you hit that, it's gonna return. Sorry, if you hit that, now it's a relative system, and if you just cancel that, it's an absolute. Anyway, so see, it's an absolute system because it stores the information. If you hit that now, it's an offset system. So that's it. That's another way of dealing with this moving transformer or rotate on scale. It's a good way to understand the two way that transformer coordinating system work. And again, it's right click on the command to see this transform type in, or use the lower keys that we have in here, or the lower button here we have. So now it's let's have this, let's do this shape. It's very basic and it's very simple geometry based on our understanding for a very basic understanding for primitives and transformers. So let's do that, and it's very easy. It's the top view, and as you see, I didn't give height, so I'll leave the height for those keys for you. So I'll start doing this, which is 7 by 7. It's just a box, so I'm gonna select everything like such and then hit the delete key to get rid of those. I'm gonna create a box here, and again I'm gonna put it in the 0, 0, 0, then hit the modify and make it 7, and then tab, and then 7, and tab, and 7. I'll just make it 7 by 7 as such. As I said, if you start from scratch and you don't have anything related to CAD, it could be a good idea to start up based on the origin. Now this 7 by 7 have another copy of it, we can, and we push it downward 6, and then we push it that way in the amount of, I think, 4, because if that's a 3, so that's left off 4. So let's do that. So I'm gonna hit Control V while I'm selecting it to make a copy in place, or a clone in place. So that's a copy. Hit OK. Again, push that downward by 4, so minus 4. Is it 4, right? It's actually 6, sorry. So minus 6. And then push it that way in X with a 4. So those two things, or two boxes as we need. Probably in here, and make this guy 6 as a height, just to make it, you know, less height, make it more interesting. Architect usually love making things with a different height and make it harder for the structure engineer. Anyway, so again, go back here. Now we need this guy, which is 10 by 16, and they are touching each other by this side. So again, jump here, select that, Control V, and hit OK. Now I don't know how much do I have to offset. I know you can calculate, and you go the midpoint of this to the midpoint of that. That's 5, that's 3.5. I can just push it 8.5. Anyhow, like this, and I can change this to make it 10 and the other one 16. Which one is 10? Which one is 16? Trust me, I don't know. So just go 10. It isn't, so I'll stand aside and Control Z. So this is the 10, and this is the 16. Now look, I know we push that the exact amount, and it's just calculate that happily. Now I don't know how much is that. Let's assume I don't know how much is that. It's a good technique working with this is just to push 1 by 1. So I come here and make it -1 because it's down, -1, -1, and -1. And again, if you hit -1, it's going to be lower, so just push upper, so 0.5, and you're going to get happy result. All the numbers, be smart when you work. Look, all of the numbers are clean number. There's no 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, so get advantage of pushing things 1 by 1 or half by half to get a quick happy result out of that. So now this guy, the long guy, Again, I'm going to take this. I'm going to hit copy in place by Control and V, hit OK. And now I will push, actually I will change the dimension. So let's make 24. So let's make this 24. And that's not the way. Again, undo, so make it 24 here. While this guy is, how much? 5. As you can see. Now, again, it's 4 meters away from that and 4 meters away from that edge. So it's a good idea to push that box 0.5 upward, another 0.5. Beautiful. And then we push that to that edge. So I'm going to push that maybe 2 in X, another 2 in X. See, I don't know how much. Too lazy to think it. See, and that's a 0.5. It's really a good strategy, by the way. And then now they are aligned on this both corner, left top corner. Now push that 4 that way, push that 4 downward. So -4, and then in the Y -4 again. And we got this as we want as a top view. Then we can jump here, change whatever we want as a heights, and by that we can guarantee for us a good composition or a good way to sketch a precise sketch based on the use of transformers and copy things at place or cloning things at place. It's a very basic tutorial, a very basic example to exercise this tools or this group of tools to create this object. So try to do that later on by your own based on this slide. And remember to keep the speed as much as you can. Keep repeating this a couple of times in order to guarantee good speed. Anyway, now we've done that. We've done the same exercise by ourselves depending on the transform type in, but we ignore the existence of snapping grid. Snapping is very powerful, by the way, in Max, and yet I don't like them for some reason anyway. So for moving, for example, we're gonna get this option here to the snap. You need to toggle that. So they are toggle. So when you click that, it's toggle on. It's 3D. If you keep clicking it, you're gonna see that it's 2D, 2.5, and 3. For example, 2D. I'm not recommend that for you. So if you want to work on 2D things, so just jump in and then work in a 2D viewport like this. And I'm gonna select that and push that to that point. That can really reduce the suffer of what we was talking about in the previous exercise. See how fast it is. I don't like doing such thing in a 3D. I don't like that at all. See, it's annoying kind of, and then it go crazy. It shouldn't go that anyway, and that's why I use 2D here. In 2D, if you want to make 3D things, just snap that to the 3D object, maximize that, and it should work actually in a better way, as you see here. Or to put that above that object and so on. Quickly, see, lovely and quickly. Move that aside. So maybe this. I'll push it here like this. See, beautiful. Okay. Again, don't use the 3D things in here. The 3D snap, use it for that 3D viewport, and the 2D thing, use it in the 2D viewport. I'm going to explain later on in the next example the use of 2.5 anyway. So this guy, the snap toggle here, that's for the movement. That's what this goes together. If I turn that off, and by the way, to specify what type of snapping, you need to right click on that. And probably for your screen, you won't find it that easy because this guy, the grid, is activated. So make sure to turn it off. Otherwise, you know, it's gonna snap to the grid, and technically no one uses it anymore. So turn off this and keep it just by vertex, which is the end of this. The funny thing here is they add here clear all. It's not like OK, so you don't need to check this and hit OK. It's not an OK. Right? I don't know why Autodesk do that, but anyway. So that's it for this. So I'm gonna turn it off. Okay, now for the next one, which is That's the rotation snap. So select this guy and select this guy, and notice now when you move, see it's jump each 5. That's my 45. Without it, it's gonna be free rotation. See, there's points in the subject. Anyway, turn it on, it's gonna be more accurate. Again, right click on it. That's it. If you want to make it like each 10, I don't know, whatever set you like. Now it's jumping 10 by 10. Similarly here, you can change that. Anyhow, that again for scale. So if you hit the scale and then hit that, when you push your hand down, look, it's moving 10 by 10. So 80, 70, 60. If you see the scale transform type in here, see. Right click on it again, so that the percentage of 10%. If you want to change that, change it here, each 5 or whatever you want. That one, which is the most interesting one, which is here, the spinner snap. This guy is really useful. So if I selected an object like this guy here, and each time I click here, you see that each click is 1 meter or 1 value or 1 unit, which is really lovely and really fast. Anyway, now see it jump here each unit, which is really powerful, by the way. You see how nice it is. You know that each click we're going to change 1, and it helps you to get rid of this percentage. Right click on it, and here we go. This one, it tells you that each click we're going to snap 1. So this is going to be cancelled as a precise change, and then going to stay at 1. You can make it at each 0.5, for example. So each click is in a half, and so on. I'll keep it 1. So that's it about snapping. That's the slide. Again, we just talked about that, the grid and snap setting, and I usually turn off this and keep the vertex on. And that's again the ability for you to allow you actually to change the grid spacing. I just skipped that. It's not really any more use. Just the home grid if you want to change the grids. All right, so now let's do some talk about grouping. So again, you might do like any composition, or you might do a villa, or you might do a chair, whatever model you want to do, and that you want to be kept repeated. And it's a good idea to make all those objects work together. So you can select them together like this, and then you move them, for example, like this. But again, if they are too complicated, or a full detailed villa, or very complicated interior chair, it's really a bad thing to keep selecting them. And it's a good idea to go here to group, and then hit just group. And let's say that villa one or whatever. Now they all gonna act as if they were AutoCAD block, and if they are as one object, so you can select them anywhere you select or deselect. Anywhere you click, you're gonna select this guy. If you want to make shift and move again like this, you're gonna make copy. And as you see here, it's really good to make the entire villa here copied, and you hit OK, and that's it. We can make a shift and move, or shift and a copy by hitting a shift and move. Anyway, so that's our group here, 1 and 2, and there are 2 groups. It's easier for you to scale, to select, and easier for you to copy again. If you want to open the group like this, there's an open command, and it's allow you to change anything in that group like this, for example. And then when you finish, select and then hit close to return to a group condition or situation. And careful, you have again here you have ungroup, which will cancel this guy, as you can see. All right, so again, group, and then whatever the name. So what's the difference between ungroup and explode? So let's assume that we have a nested groups, which is a group inside a group. So let's assume that those are another group. So I'm gonna select those three things, and I'm gonna make group. So that's group 2, and that's group 1. Okay. What if we wanted to make both of those groups as an entire group here? Let's make it big. I don't know. Group. And now ungroup will cancel the big one, which is the one that holds them together, which is the group. We name it big group. So ungroup. See, now we return to a case where is this a group 1 and that's a group 2. Let me go undo. So that's technically, again, I'm gonna select them. I think I undo the making them as a group 1, the group. So again, now they have, as you see, there are 2 groups, and there is a bigger group that hold them. If you hit group explode, it cancels the bigger group and the small groups inside, and make everyone return, every element return to its previous condition. It cancels the bigger group, or group 3, it cancels group 2, and it cancels group 1. That's the difference between ungrouping, which is the easy one, and exploding, which is the serious one, which cancel all the nested group or all the group inside another groups. Anyhow, let's go here again. So select this guy or those guys and group them. Now, again, you can attach and detach. So if I select this object and then go to group and then attach, and then I select that group, so technically I added this box here to that group. You can just open here, open the group and select anything like this one, and then group detach to get rid of him, and then select this guy and then close the group, and the group will return to its previous condition. So grouping is really powerful tool, and you get used to deal with that on a regular basis. You actually need it very much in your work. Now, if I return to this box again, now you notice that I did some shift and move, or a copy while moving. So we said the first and basic copying method, which just select the object and hit Ctrl V, and it's gonna make a copy for that object on the same place, you know, as such. But you can just click that guy, keep pressing on shift, and then select the y-axis, for example, and move your hand. See, I am having a copy while I'm moving, and that's really good way to deal with the transformer. So when I remove my hand, I can make a copy, and then I can change that to 5. So we're gonna make 5 copies, and the distance similar to the first distance that I just moved my hand. So like this, see, make 5 copies based on the same distance, or distance between each other, same one from here to here. And now notice that when I did this, it give me as a clone object, and it give me 3 types. The first one is copy, and I said it doesn't actually have any relationship between the origin and the copy. So if I select this copy and I change its length or width, no one will change, not the other copy, not the origin. That's the lovely thing. So it's just making a copies, normal copies. See, if I just push the Y here and I move my hand and I had instance, see, now changing the original, which is this, or the origin, will change the copies. If I select any one of the copies and change it, it's gonna change the whole other brothers of it and the father or the origin. That's a different here. Now if I select instance, which is the last type of cloning here, sorry, reference. So copy, no relationship, instance, exact two-way relationship, reference, it's one-way relationship. That means this guy is the father, and if I change him, it's actually going to change the rest of the copies. Look, if you select the copy, there is nothing in the modify, and that's really really important. That's give you the control over those. You know, that they are not important. That one is the one is the reference one, or the important one. And again, even if you look, you're gonna see this blocked, nothing here, and you see a word of box. If you select it, this is not for the object, it's this guy setting. So when you change that, you're going to change them all. So don't be confused. This, we are selecting, when you select this guy, this box is represent this father or the origin setting, not his setting. He doesn't have any actual setting for himself. Anyway, those again might be useful for you, which types of selection. And the same thing actually happen when you have rotation. So if you go rotate and then shift continuously and then hit on to rotate around the Z like this, and then you remove your hand, just hit copy, and then, you know, see, it's actually gonna make rotation and copy at the same time. The same thing goes for the scale. Anyway, that's for the group, and that's again for all types of transformation. Now let's go for another type of transformation, which is mirror. So I'm gonna delete this guy, and I'll have keyboard here. And if I want to press on mirror, just hit this, and see immediately it's flipped. So I'm gonna repeat, just click, see immediately it's gonna mirror itself. Just go copy. The previous guy was no clone. That means it's apply the mirror effect on the origin. If you hit the copy, you're gonna see both. That's the mirror of the axis, or mirror line, whatever you want to call it. See, that's based on X. You can base on Y, or you can even base on Z. I don't know. It depends on what you want. X and Y plane. I don't know. That's I'll keep that for you. Just the line will be not a straight X-axis, while it's X and Y here, and so on and so on. Hit OK to accept that. I think it's really really easy command here, mirror, and it's allowing you to make a mirror objects based on a previously exist one. That's the steps. Again, it's all been taken from 3D Studio Max main help. That's the interface. Again, cloning types, whether no clone, copy clone, or instance clone, or reference clone. We spoke about that before. Now AutoGrid. Again, if I have a box and I want here to create another object on the face of that, okay, like this. So it's a good idea to apply that by having AutoGrid. So when you hit AutoGrid, I can just see that's the normal way where we have Z axis. If you don't have it, see, Mac's gonna keep creating things on the ground here, see, and you go up. While if you hit the auto, see this, there is extra triage, and see Z is upward. While you hit the face, it sends the face of the box, and now the Z to the right, now the Z to the south. So you can just click and drag and create the object here, or click and drag and create the object here. I can stand on that object and create another smaller box, and so on and so on, as you can see. It's a very powerful tool, and I highly advise you to deal with it or to work with it. And usually you need to, by itself is not working, so you have to select an object primitive, and then it's going to be active for you to work. Now the pivot point, which is technically the last thing to talk about in this lecture. So the pivot point allow us to change the location of the gizmo. So if I go to the top of view and I created a box here, and this box here, let's say, and randomly I can just place it at any place you want, or change it to 0, 0, but let's keep it away from the 0, 0. and then you hit rotate. See, the gizmo is allow us to rotate around the center of the object like this, right? And if you want to make a rotation here with the snapping, you see like it's a 45. It doesn't have actually 45, so let's go 13, and then I make like 11 copy and then hit OK to make something like clock or something like that. It's again rotating around the center of the object. What if I want to make this here? If I want to copy this pivot and put it here, so the rotation will be around it, so it's like a clock or something. It's a good idea. So first, let me put that back on the 0, 0. Alright, so then I'm gonna push that vertically like such. Let's say it's 160 exactly, and if I hit F3, it's going to be shaded. See, that's the object and that's the origin. So I can just select this guy and then go to hierarchy here and then affect pivot only. Now see when I clicked that, it wasn't clicking. That's the original pivot, and it's going to control the entire pivot on object. Turn affect pivot only, you're going to move the pivot only. See the change that happened. It's like a gizmo above that gizmo. So now I can just move it away. I put it here, or I just put it on 0, 0, and then hit enter. Let me turn off that. Okay. So now, look, if I want to do a rotation, of course you must turn off. See, you must turn off the affect pivot, otherwise you're going to make a mess. Turn it off because you need to work on the object level again. Now shift again and move that for number 30 and make 11 out of those, and you can get, let me do undo again. Let's make like this. I'll make instance and then I'll make 11 copy to make a clock, for example, and I can just make the length actually that's less like this. So as you can see, I managed to rotate this object around another point, which is a really powerful way of creating a watch, for example, or a rotation around an object. I can go here in the 3D and then 2D shapes, and then I pick text and I create that here and change this into 12, for example. Probably it's too big, so I'll change the size to something less, and then I move it here. I can do the same thing. I can go to hierarchy, affect pivot point, and give that 0 as 0 as such. Turn it off and then rotate it to 30 degrees. And then cancel the instance. I'll make it copy, and then I'll make 11 of them. And then I have to select each one of those and then hit reset pivot to get back to itself, and then I can rotate that back to 0, and then I have to go to modify and change this to number 1, and so on. You can go ahead and do the rest of those, each one of them, to get like a nice watch with the 12 hours. Anyway, so that's about that's a good way of dealing with copy, and that's a good way of dealing with rotate. We also spoke about how to make pivot, how to make that object rotate based on an internal point or external point actually, and it's a good way. The pivot, controlling the pivot, actually allow you to do lots of changes, and allow you actually to do a lots of changes. And I will leave you to continue later on by yourself this watch exercise. It's very powerful way that help you to control and change the location of the objects and rotate them around another one. Don't forget to turn off the affect pivot only. It's really a miserable thing if you fail to do anything. If you fail to return to that case, just don't forget to go and reset the pivot point to return it to its previous location. Anyway, all we have left here is the exercise, which is this one, which is really a big exercise. I'm gonna do that in a totally different or a next video. I will stop for that now. I wish that if you have any question, just pop up the question on my YouTube. Happy to help you with. Just keep the habit of keep exercising. Anyway, see you next video. Thank you very much and have a good day.